Hi there, I'm Birgit O'Connor, and welcome to my studio. Now, we have a workshop coming up this weekend, and it inspired me to come on and just show you a very simple technique that can be applied to any painting. And the workshop that we're going to be doing is called Expressive Watercolor, not watercolor, Expressive Waterfalls. So what you can see behind me here in these two paintings, one is a waterfall and the other one is a lighthouse. That will be coming up later in June. And basically, what we're doing is using a very simple technique, and that simple technique can be a little uncomfortable for a lot of people because they want to usually paint all the details and you get trapped in the actual reference photo or the object that you see. A lot of times you're overwhelmed with too much. So, how can we keep it simple and fun and capture the essence? So my plan is that I wanted to show you that technique in maybe three different scenes. One may be mountains, one the beach scene, and something else. I don't remember what it is. So let's go over to the table and take a look. Oops, I have to go get the right setting here. There we go. Okay, so what you can see here is that this is our expressive waterfall class. And the idea is that we're going to be working with some mossy scenes, capturing the essence, getting some rocks in here. And the only issue that people will have is if they really need it to be representational and realistic, because like I said, here we are actually capturing the essence more than trying to get all the details. This is a semi-abstract right here, working with the different layers of color and water. And then here, semi-representational, working with the falls coming down, and you can see the texture in the paper here. So what I'm trying to do with this one is show you that you can really work with anything. And then if you do have paper where you are seeing the texture in here, to flatten that color, you can always hit it with a hair dryer, and that will stop that from settling in the grooves of the paper. Now, this could use a little more detail here, but that's the idea. And losing edges, which means that maybe we have a hard line right here and maybe up in this area, you may decide to just add more water and allow the color to escape, creating more of a very misty feel. This is just something very quick. It's not meant to be perfect. And in fact, this is a great lesson for people that want to not feel overwhelmed or to actually feel successful. The trap is in your mind thinking that it needs to look like exactly what you see. And let's take a look at some of these other ones here. I have them back here. And actually, this is going to be the same technique that I'm using in these waterfalls for this lighthouse. And this can be done with masking or not. It really depends on what you want to do. That's a lot of fun. That'll be coming up soon. And then using the technique that I'm going to show you today, this is really capturing the idea, using the paint right up here, losing the edges, allowing the background to bleed down into this spot, and not having to cover every white area, allowing some of the paper to show through. That creates a lot of fun. And then in here, this was actually one of my first plein air paintings. And what I really liked about this is that being able to use this technique and going on site and just you can try to paint, like I said, everything that you see, or allow the paint and the water to do the work for you. Same thing here. This is more semi-abstracted, and to get these kind of effects right down here, it really depends with how you hold your paper. And these are just smaller versions of the same thing. Oh, I don't like this one as much that I put over here. That just seemed too boring. And you can see like something like this. You can even capture a barn back there just with a hint of color, or trees just by the amount of pigment that you put down on the paper. This is more of a gray scene with a little more controlled, foggy day. And this is a wonderful little beach scene, all with the same technique. Okay, so I'm going to put this to the side. And the exercise that I want to show you today is something like this. You can see I have mountains, I have a desert scene, and I have a little beach scene down here. Now, when I look at these, I could come back in and I could develop this more. That would be a lot of fun to do. But for the purpose of this lesson, I'm just going to try to keep it as simple as possible. And I'm using a piece of 140-pound cold press paper. And I'm going to make 3 rectangles. Now you could put tape on the side if you really wanted to be controlled and clean, you can do that. Or let's just make 3 little rectangles, just approximate where you want them. It doesn't have to be perfect, just something like that. The top one's going to be my snow scene. Here's my pencil. I could draw it in. I could, but I want to not do too much to this. So I'm going to go ahead, add maybe a couple little mountains up here, just kind of like a wiggle. I'm intentionally having a very light touch to this, so that way I know you can't see it. It helps me have a better idea of where I want my sky and where I want the top of my mountain. And then down here, this will be the bottom of my area here that I'm going to be painting in. So I'm going to move this over, and then I'm going to take a piece of scrap paper like this. This is 300-pound cold press paper. I'm just going to tear a piece off like that. In fact, I really like to collect my old pieces. I think they're a lot of fun. Of course, you could always do something where you have a very defined edge like that. That would be wonderful if you want some really straight lines. But here, I really like the irregularity of this. So for this one, I'm going to grab my brushes. I have a number 14 and a 20 blend brush, just so I have them available. That's going to help me make my little puddle of color. So I'm going to go ahead and get my sky in. I can use a brush, or I could even use my little piece of paper. Put this over to the side here so we can see it. I'm going to start with my sky. Get some water right in my palette. You can see my palette is not pristine, and this is what I work with all the time. So I'm going to take a little bit of my cobalt blue, put that in here, just like that. And I'm thinking about how much water do I want in here? Do I want it to be really watery and transparent, or do I want more color so I have a bluer sky? It doesn't really matter. It's going to be a personal preference. I'm going to get a little more in here. And I'm thinking I might use my brush to get the sky in. And I'm thinking about the size of the area that I'm working on. Do I want to use the 14 or do I need the 20? How much space do I want to cover? I'm going to use the 14. I'm getting the water in here, and I'm also thinking about the angle of my brush. Do I want it to be like this? Do I want more of a line, or do I want more of a do I want to take advantage of the edges for the clouds? I'll go wet on dry. That means a wet brush on dry paper right here. And I'm going to think about my clouds. So basically, I'm going to lightly touch and then press a little harder. And now I have some clouds. Very simple. And if I want to, I could always lose an edge just by getting a little bit of water in here and maybe touching things. That's if it's important to me. I could add more sky or leave it like that. It really doesn't matter. Now I want this to be maybe some white, maybe some snow on the mountains. That's what I'm thinking. I'm going to get a little bit of color right down here, just a little tiny bit. Then I might take my dirty paper or my new piece of paper. That's either one, doesn't matter. It just has to feel right. And then I'm thinking about, since these are going to be up in the mountains, I'm going to have more rocks up in that area. I'm going to use a little burnt sienna, bring that in here. This is very watery. It's a very light value. Then I'll take my paper like that, just scoop that up just like I would a brush. And then I'm going to think about, okay, my mountain, my snow is going to be up here. And I'm just going to move this around. I could put, I don't have a lot of color in this. I'm intentionally not putting a lot of color into that. But let's just find some of these areas. Sometimes it can be a little hard to talk and paint at the same time, but we'll see. Okay, I'm just finding the bottom of where I want my snow to be, like that. And then I'm thinking, do I want to go ahead and use this to get my foreground in or not? But for this type of painting, we really don't want to overthink it. Okay, I'm just going to go like that, something very simple like this. And then what I could take is my number 20, remove the extra water, and I think I might even touch a few of these edges. Means I'm dissolving some of them. Just a few of them. I have a lot of pink in this thing, which I used this on a different project. So there we go. Now I could use this as a foundation. I like how I have my blue sky here. We have our blue sky up here. And I could come back in with more detail. I could add more trees in here. There's a lot of things I can do, but this is the idea. And then using that same idea of mountains, I'm going to come down into this area and then maybe make a desert scene. I think I might expand this a little bit more right there. So using my number 14 blend brush, I'm going to clean that off, get more blue. Okay, just like that. And if you're doing this at home, you might want to measure this out so you have it just spaced out better than what I have here, but this is the idea. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and get this in here, and I might even change the type of clouds that I'm doing. I think maybe I'll want to have these a bit more slanted, something like that. Now, that's going to look terrible. So what I need to do is dissolve some edges. I'll come in with my number 20, remove the extra water, and you can see rinse bucket, removing some of the water, and then I'll soften an edge here and there. Okay. All right, and then this area is dry, and I'm thinking, do I want it to be dry? What do I want to do with it? That's fine that I dissolved that edge. Now I'm going to come down into the desert. I'm going to use the same colors here. I have a cobalt blue and a burnt sienna, just like that, and turn it more into the desert color. And then I think I was debating, do I want to use a brush or do I want to use my scrap piece of paper? Let's go ahead and use that. I'm intentionally not adding a lot of color to this. Just like that. And now I think that's all right. Then I'm going to use my number 20 and then I'm going to soften, not really soften, just touch a few of these edges here and there. Now, if you're absolutely brand new to watercolor, this might not make any sense to you. And you might think, well, that really looks like nothing. And you are right, because it really doesn't look like anything until you develop it more, until you work with your values. But what I'm looking at here is I'm looking at, we can see this has a bit more water, or it's a little damp right up here. It has a very dull sheen. This has a light sheen right here. You can see it glisten a little bit. This is very dull. So that means I could come back in this area and add more definition. And I could actually come in and add more color into the desert there. What's nice is that it's creating a few little blooms over here, right through there, and that can give a really nice effect. So I'm going to go ahead and just maybe add a little bit of, I'm still adding the burnt sienna. I'm just leaning it more towards the burnt sienna instead of it being more of this blue-gray color. And I also am finding that I am starting to fiddle, and I don't want to fiddle with this. So I want to get my clouds, or not my clouds, my hills back here. Do the same thing. I'm using the same colors. I just want it to be a little thicker, a darker value. And a lot of people like to think about butter, tea, coffee, and all of that stuff. I think you can get really confused with that, so I don't really think about that as much. So I'm going to go ahead and if you don't know what I'm talking about, is when you think about this little puddle, is that buttery? Is that coffee-like? Is it tea? I don't pay any attention to this. I'm just thinking about, is it going to move for me? Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and use the same idea up here, but I'm going to go a little darker because I want this to be my mountain. I don't want this to be snow-capped. Okay, let's find some form. However the mountains look to you. And if you notice, I'm moving my hand. Maybe I want this to be a little bit further down. There's no right or wrong with this. What would be fun is if I use this brush and take advantage of the water, and maybe I don't want to remove all of it. I'm just tapping a little bit of that water out. And maybe I'll touch a few of these spots and see if I can encourage a few blooms. And if I want this to be a lot of fun, maybe what I'll do is bring a little bit of my Hansa Yellow Medium. I've polluted this, but that's okay. I'm going to mix that in. I want it to be a duller yellow green. And I'm allowing that color to dry a little bit. And then I'm going to use this little piece of paper. And then I think I'll try to add just a few little grasses in here. Maybe I'll take a little bit of the burnt sienna, pull that in. I don't want that to overpower anything, so that's why I stopped. And maybe touch a few little spots like this. Then I think what would be a lot of fun is to take maybe a number 8 or a number 3 synthetic. And what I'm thinking about is that I want to spatter a little color in here. Let's break that up a little bit. I think the number 8 would be better. I could even do this. I know that some is going up into the sky. I'm not too worried about that because I can always lift it out. What's nice about this right here, I've lost some edges. This could even be like if I wanted, whatever I wanted to do, this could be a lake back here. I'm just looking at the angle. That could be a cove. It could be a valley. There's lots of things. And again, this is all a very light value. And I could develop this more. I don't like this spot over here, so I'm going to just lift that out a little bit. So a lot of times people will overdo it at this stage. So think about a foundation. I could add more, maybe trees up here. I could go darker with my sky, but this is a great foundation. This is a wonderful little desert scene right here. And what if I decide to go more into a beach scene right down here? I think I want the sky to be a little bit different. So I'm going to take my 30. I'm going to get water right in here. And then I'm going to take my number 14 blend brush using my cobalt blue. And I'd like this to be a little darker along the top. And I want that to dissolve down into a lighter value. So I'm going to go ahead and lift my paper up just like that. but I don't want it to stay like a band. And I'm thinking, do I want more color in there? I could. It really depends what I'm trying to do. This has a lot of water down here. Let's look at that right there. I'm going to take my number 30 and I'm actually going to press a little harder and I'm rotating my brush like this to remove some of the extra water. Okay, I want that to dry a little bit, but I'm not going to wait for it to dry. So I'm going to go ahead and take my little piece of paper again. I think I'm going to start down on the bottom and work my way up. So that gives that a moment to dry. And I think I want my beach grass or my beaches. I'll go for my beaches. And I'm thinking, do I want to stay with that green color or can I mix it all together to create something more neutral? Well, let's try. Okay, I'd like the beach to be a little smoother, but we'll see. Okay, I think that's a good color for the beach. Just like that. And I think I'll take my number 14 going back into this color. That could be some sand or things like that. It could be anything. Now, by using the brush, you can see that it's going to hold more water. Like that. Removing some of the extra water. So basically what I'm trying to do is I'm thinking about how much water do I want on the surface. Okay, getting a little too fussy there. Then I'm going to take my little piece of paper here. And I'd like that to be dry so I can get some waves in here. Do I want to dry it? I'm going to go back into my cobalt blue. Maybe I'll take a little bit of the French ultramarine blue. This is expressive painting. This isn't so much, remember, this is not representational painting. I'm going to see where my horizon line is right through here and see how much is it spreading. Quite a bit. So we'll just leave that alone. And it would be better if I can dry this. And I'm just debating on that. I want to get a few waves in here. So that does need to dry. And down in this area, I'll just hit it with a hairdryer really quickly. Now I don't need that really, really dry, but it was just too wet. Then let's go along that line again. Let's see if I like that. That horizon can work. I could also bring that horizon up a little bit more. And let's see, maybe I'll do that. We'll have a horizon about there. And if I want this to be precise, I could wait for it to dry. I could always put tape there and then put this in. But this just gives you a chance to practice with the technique. And then I'll break up some of these waves just by touching them and closing them up. I like what's happening in this area. I'm going to treat my wave just like I would. All of these are all the same. Remember, it's all the same technique, just different types of scenes. I'd like a little more water in here. Let's see. Let's just see what happens. I do like this. This could give the impression of something rolling over. That's kind of nice. Maybe I'll take the 14 and get a bit more water on here. I think that's kind of nice. Okay. I could always introduce other colors into that. That gives me the impression of the white water, the rumbling down here. Any area that I think I might have more pigment, I can go ahead and just lift out a little bit of that. I like this down here, but I think that's too flat. Then I think I'll take my number 3 or the 8. Let's go ahead and break that up right through there. Now that could be a little rocky scene right through there, or I can come back in. Actually, I was going to use this, but I'm going to use my little piece of paper again. And I think I want to create some irregularity to the beach here. Let's make it more interesting. Maybe even a few little grasses. Oh, I like that. Okay, so I'm very pleased with these 3, but looking at this, it could use just more depth. And to do that, I would look at this as my foundation, and I'm going to use our combination over here. I'm going to go ahead and let's work on our values just a little bit more. Let's pull out those mountains. Or maybe I want some trees. And if I want trees, I'm going to use my little scrap piece of paper and touch the bottom through there. And I don't want them to look all the same. Then I might touch a few of these edges and lose an edge here and there. I could add more color into the sky, but I'm going to call that good for now. In this area, maybe I want to, it's all very similar in value. I do like this. I'm going to take advantage of what's happening here, and I'm going to use that like a mist. So I'm going to use the same color combination, and I'm going to go a little darker with my foreground. This is very spontaneous painting. If I wanted to be more exact, I would take more time with it. And I like this the way it is, so I think I'm going to leave that alone. And let's see. If we had this on a darker background, you can see it's very simple. It isn't very developed at all, but what I wanted you to really see is how you can use the same technique and create 3 different environments very easily. And that would be the same technique for this or the waterfalls. So I hope that helps. And I think that's a lot of fun. Oops. No, I think that's a lot of fun, and I do hope that helps and give you a better idea how you can create some really fun techniques and keep it very simple. So until next time, have fun and happy painting. And if you're interested in more of these little lessons, don't forget to subscribe.